2021. We will have a presentation brought to us by Jessica Gwynn, who is the Director of Community Development.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Jessica Gwynn, Community Development Director. We appreciate this opportunity to come speak with you this afternoon about our budget request for fiscal year 23 and 24. And also just really excited to tell you about the good work at community development, the great things that we're accomplishing, and the things that I expect in the coming years. So the mission statement of the community development, we have several important keys here that we work towards. First of all, implementing federal, state, and county environmental mandates. Also advising you all as the Board of Commissioners as well as the general public on development and planning issues. Ensuring public safety through the built environment with our codes, our building codes and development standards. And also responsible for maintaining and increasing the quality of life in the county. And again, the things that we do in community development, planning and zoning, those are key to providing and maintaining quality of life, code enforcement. All of those things are important in making Cobb County a great place to live and work. The Community Development Agency includes 8 divisions, and we have several of our division managers here today, so I'll introduce those as we go through it. But the first division is the Administration Division. Of course, that's the agency director, the business manager, and the communications specialist. And we have Alex Camber on here. Alex is our business manager, and I'd really like to give him a special thank you. He's been instrumental in helping to put together our budget request and this presentation and just done a fantastic job, and we're very fortunate to have him. We also have the Economic Development Division. We will be seeking to bring on a new Economic Development Division manager in the near future and are excited to see how we can grow economic development and continue to do better work there in Cobb over the coming years. We also have the Planning Division. Planning Division, of course, is the longer range planning. And they also work on things like historic preservation, the Historic Preservation Commission, GIS, and also intergovernmental coordination. So annexation issues, the House Bill 489 agreements, and those sorts of things. We have the Business License Division, and we have Alicia Webb, our Business License Division Manager, here today. Many of you probably know her. She's been with the county for a very long time, does a great job. The Code Enforcement Division, with Kathy Pickett, our Division Manager here, and Kathy, again, is a long-time employee of the county, has been very supportive and just continuing to do good work with code enforcement. We have the Zoning Division, and I know that one's everyone's favorite. We enjoy meeting with them every month, a couple of times with the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, and of course you all. And of course we have John Peterson, another longtime employee of Cobb County, here with us today, our Division Manager. Then we also have the Erosion Control Division. That group is headed up by Frank Gibson, another wonderful long-time employee of Cobb County, and so as you can see, we have a lot of great long-term knowledge and institutional knowledge on staff. The Erosion Control Division is important because they help us keep our issuing authority and make sure that our streams are protected. And then we also have the Development and Inspections Division, and that's headed up by our Chief Building Official, Kevin Gobble. That includes all of our trade inspectors, permitting, site inspectors, plan review, so it's a very big group. We'll talk a little bit about the challenges that we're having right now in community development, and I'll tell you they're very similar to what you've heard from a lot of our other department heads. Chief among them is recruitment and retention. Right now we're, as you've heard, having a difficult time filling positions because frankly our wages just aren't competitive. Not only are we competing with surrounding jurisdictions, but whenever you're talking about engineers and planners and electricians, we're competing with the private sector. We lose a lot of people to the private sector and just simply can't be competitive there. We have a real issue with an aging workforce. I was actually looking just today. On our staff of about 120 people, 15 are currently eligible for retirement or will be before the end of 2021. An additional 24 will be eligible by the end of 26. So that's a total of 39 people, about 30%, about a third of our workforce that will be eligible for retirement before 2026. We're losing a lot of institutional knowledge there. You see our staff out here, our division managers, most of them are on that list. So that's something that's a very real issue and a really very real concern for us at community development right now. Increased inspections, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but if you're driving around Cobb County, you will see that development is happening, building is happening. That's one of the great stories out of the pandemic, is that businesses, development still continues to thrive here in Cobb County, and a lot of that's because you all as board, the staff here at Cobb have made a commitment to making sure that Cobb County is a great place to work and do business. That's happening, but as a result, it requires an increased service level. There's increased demand for inspections and other services that we provide. And then finally, code enforcement. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on too, but code enforcement is key to what we do here in terms of providing for quality of life. Right now, frankly, we do reactive code enforcement. There's not a whole lot of proactive code enforcement happening because we just don't have the people to make it happen. We don't have the resources. So we'll start out really talking about the Development and Inspections Division and some of the challenges that we've had there. And I wanted to put this up to share with you. These are some of the positions. Most are in the Development and Inspections Division, but we also have our code enforcement officers here. These are positions that have been challenging for us to fill over the last year. You can see we have one electrical inspector. We lost an inspector to retirement. That position sat vacant 10 months and was reposted 4 times. We had another electrical inspector position, vacant 8 months, reposted twice. Mechanical inspectors, same story there, where positions sitting vacant for months, reposted numerous times, and we are not able to fill them because we cannot find qualified candidates who are in line with the salary that we can offer them. Similar thing with code enforcement. Again, just very challenging. As soon as we get a code enforcement officer in, the next one's out the door. So we're having a very hard, difficult time filling and keeping those positions filled. We have a lot of great opportunities, things that I'm very excited for that are on the horizon. We are thankful with the opening of the new police headquarters. We were able to get the internal affairs space over at Powder Springs Station, and that gave us some space to spread out. If any of you, and I know Commissioner Sheffield and Commissioner Richardson, you all, when you started your term as commissioners, came by and visited with us and saw that we had people tucked in literally every corner. The great thing with the new internal affairs space is that we were able to move our code enforcement division as well as erosion control a couple doors down, create a little bit more space. So that's opened up some more space in our building. We're thankful for that. We also have the new software that the board approved, and we're excited for the opportunities that's going to provide for us to offer better services online, to do more concurrent plan review with our fellow reviewing agencies. Again, just enhancing online services. We have business license revenue is way up, continues to increase, and that was something we were curious to see as a result of the pandemic, how occupation taxes would be impacted, but they are continuing to increase, and we're very pleased to see business continuing to thrive here in Cobb County. And then we've also talked at your retreat earlier this year, I mentioned that we had been basing our permit fees on the 2010 IBC building valuation table. At this point, we have changed that and are now using the 2018 building valuation, so that also has increased our revenue there in the Development and Inspections Division and really just brought us more in line with other jurisdictions, and I'll show you a little bit of a comparison with that in a moment. Online services, one of the sort of blessings of the pandemic, if you want to call that, one of the silver linings, it kind of forced us to rip the Band-Aid off on some things that really, frankly, we needed to do a long time ago, specifically on really pushing online services. And, you know, people are busy, they're working, they're out there doing the development, the building, they're doing their businesses. They don't have a lot of time to come stand in line at county offices and try to get a permit or a business license. That's probably not really on their radar for how they could most productively and effectively spend their time. With the business license renewals, that was something that started a few years ago, but we really kind of started pushing it a little bit more with the 2020 renewal season. And that was prior to the pandemic, so we're pushing the online renewals. We're seeing some pickup in that. And it turned out that it was a great thing we did because obviously with the pandemic and our office was closed to the public for 2 months, we were still able to continue accepting permit applications, business license applications, and business license renewals. And one of the very neat things about that is, and you see here in the bottom table, that in 2019, we had about $1.6 million of our business license revenue, which is usually around 21 million total, that came in online. For fiscal year 21, we're up to 6.3 million. So that's great because we're able to process those more quickly. The businesses don't have to take time to come into our office or go to the post office. They're renewing more quickly. The money hits the bank quicker. So it's a win-win for everyone. We also offer online zoning sign permits, so that's another thing that you can see there's been an increase in and a great service to our customers. Residential trade permits. Again, when our office shut down, people couldn't come in and pull a permit for their deck. They started doing everything online, and we've seen that people are continuing to do that. Although we're open, you can still come get a permit, no problem. People have found that it really is a lot more convenient just to do those things online, so we're very pleased with that. Some of the challenges that we're having in the business license division, and we have challenges up here, but really these are all things that are ultimately opportunities. We frankly just don't have the resources right now to really get out there and enforce some of the alcoholic beverage regulations, specifically making sure that all businesses serving alcohol have their necessary permits and licenses. We have an opportunity there, bringing on an additional compliance official that we could really pursue that and begin to collect those revenues and also make sure that all of our businesses are operating in line with code. We need some additional administrative support for the code officials who are out in the field. And with the increase in business licenses, the calls, the payment processing, the renewal applications, all of that has seen an uptick. And something that was really interesting, and I think I may have mentioned this at the retreat this year, when the federal government began releasing the money for businesses, the Paycheck Protection, and then of course the Board of Commissioners along with Select Cobb authorized the additional funding to support small businesses here in Cobb, all of that required a business license. So we had people coming out of the woodwork, many who had been in business for some time, and perhaps they just didn't understand or know the process, but came forward and started to get their business licenses, and of course have been renewing those this year. So that's been a good thing, but it really has increased the demand for service in our office. So to meet those needs, we are requesting the following: 2 full-time positions and 3 part-time positions. The first is a new business license compliance official. The compliance officials, essentially what they do, right now we have 4 for the entire county. They're the ones who get out there. They ensure that occupation taxes are collected, that businesses are renewing, that if there's a new business that they know to come in and get their license. They do a great job with that. I think, we get a lot of positive emails from businesses who have had interaction with our compliance officials about how friendly and helpful they were. So I think that's a great thing. But we really do need to add an additional compliance official, and that will give us an opportunity to really begin following up on some of our alcoholic beverage establishments and ensuring that we are keeping them compliant. Also, an additional public services supervisor, this official. And then we have 3 part-time positions. These are actually positions that we had previously. The funding had been cut, and we're just seeking to restore funding for those 3 part-time positions. We have a lot of part-time staff in business license, and they are absolutely instrumental in taking the calls, processing the payments, helping our businesses to obtain their business licenses. So those are all crucial. We'll talk a little bit about development inspections now, and I wanted to give you a little bit of insight about kind of what our inspectors deal with. Typically, the recommended workload for an inspector, and we have 5 trade groups, so there's building, mechanical, electrical, HVAC, and also site. So typically the recommended daily workload is about 12 to 15 inspections per day. They would hopefully be able to spend 20 minutes to an hour performing an inspection. Some inspections don't take as long, some take longer, but it really just depends on the size and scope of the project. Chief inspectors, there's a chief for each of those trade groups. Those gentlemen or ladies, but right now it's all gentlemen, they would be the ones that would essentially be handling customer support, problem solving, training, bringing on new inspectors, quality control, making sure that the vehicles are maintained properly, and the reporting. That's, in a perfect world, ideally what we really need to be able to provide the best level of service. That's not quite how things are going right now. Right now, most of our inspectors in the various trade groups are running somewhere between 18 and 24 inspections a day. Today, every day I get a report of how many inspections are being run. Today, without taking into account the site inspectors, just building, mechanical, and electrical are running a total of 281 inspections today. That's just today. We can't get to 281 inspections. It's not going to happen. I can tell you there are people who will not get their inspection today. As a result, they're also having to decrease the amount of time they're spending on each job. Whenever they get to a certain point where, we found 5 things that are not in line with code, hey guys, we've got to get out of here. Here are the things you need to work on. Work on this, call us back tomorrow before we can even complete an inspection, because we just don't have the time to walk through the process and really help our builders and developers. They're spending extended time out in the fields really trying to work on demand. They're not spending the time in the office that they need to, a lot of time, the administrative time that they need to be able to process their reports and inspections and what have you. And the chief inspectors, who really, when you're doing out there doing the more supervisory type functions, are having to get out there and complete 15, 20 inspections a day also. So it's not ideal. Just to give you a little bit more insight here, and this is for the first half of the year, you see the average inspections daily for building was 14, but that also includes an inspector who's been out on medical leave, so that's not quite accurate. 27 in electrical is the one that's really been hit hard. Also mechanical, 29. And then you see the inspections that get rolled over. And whenever typically someone calls in for an inspection, they call in today with the expectation that they'll be able to get their inspection tomorrow. And that's the goal. That's what we'd like to achieve. And that's standard. That's typical. That's what other jurisdictions are providing. And frankly, what we should be providing. But right now, just realistically, with the workload that we have, which is a good thing, it's great that we have this workload, but with the resources, we just can't meet the demand.
I'm sorry, Jessica,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not following that data. You say total inspections rolled over, but you have 14 daily. So on average, you have about 29 rolling over per day?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. So this is for the period of January 1st through June 30th. Those are total. So for that period, January to the end of June, we had 29 inspections total that rolled over that didn't get the next day inspection. That's for building. But for mechanical, we had 261 people who in that period of time did not get their inspection the next day.
Okay.
So you can see there's a little bit of...
They didn't get it the next day. They
Right.
got it maybe. Okay. But it didn't roll over to the next 6-month period?
No,
That's
no,
not it.
no.
Okay.
No, thank you. Good question. So to better meet the demand and to provide the services that we need to provide, we're asking for, again, more staff. We're asking for 1 additional inspector in each of our 5 trade groups. That will enable us to get our average inspections closer to where they need to be, and also at least some days be able to keep our chiefs out of the field so that they can do the things that they really need to be doing. And also will help us out with improving route management. And all of our inspectors have different zones that they work in, so they're not driving from, Six Flags up to Sprayberry. They're, in one geographic area of the county, but even still, it's a significant number of inspections. We're also asking for 3 plans examiners. The plans examiners review both site plans as well as building plans. Our code calls for us to do residential plan review. It's in the International Building Code. We've adopted the International Building Code. Residential plan review is not happening in Cobb County. So this would enable us to start residential plan review. It would also help us with our commercial permitting. And just to give you some idea, in recent months, because we have been short-staffed, first of all, we don't have enough positions allocated, but also it's another area that we've had a very difficult time filling positions because of the salaries that we're offering. We just aren't competitive. So as a result, we have a number of plans that we've had to start sending out to third-party reviewers to start reviewing those plans, and of course we have to pay for that. And we had a day that all of our plans examiners came in and worked a Saturday and worked overtime just to try and make a dent in the backlog. There was a Saturday a couple of weeks ago that our permit techs came in and worked some overtime to make a dent in the backlog because they are so overwhelmed and overloaded, especially during the day when the phones are ringing and people are calling in wondering when their inspection is going to happen. And so we really need some additional support there. Additional public service tech 3, and that is our permit tech. So an additional permit tech to help with both the in-person as well as phone and email customers to be sure that we can maintain that service level that ultimately people should expect in Cobb County if they're truly going to expect the best. In fact, if you called Cobb County, the permits line recently, there would be days that you may wait 30 minutes on hold because we simply do not have the staff to take the calls and to address the questions. We're also asking to refund a part-time position that has, to restore the funding for a position that's been defunded, and that's a part-time housing complaint coordinator. A couple years ago, whenever there was that concerted effort with the apartments over at Riverside Parkway, those 3 apartment complexes, and Chairwoman and Commissioner Sheffield, I'm sure that you all remember those. We had a part-time housing complaint coordinator at the time who was really instrumental in helping us to bring those apartments up to a more livable standard. Erosion control works very closely with our development inspections group. The only difference between our erosion control inspectors and our site inspectors is that the erosion control group focuses on residential, whereas the site inspectors focus on more commercial. Every time it rains, and we've had a lot of rain this summer, Frank Gibson's phone is blowing up. So we do get a lot of complaints that there's silt washing into the road, just all those sorts of things, running onto the neighbor's yard. So they stay very busy, and we are asking for, right now, currently we have 4 full-time erosion control inspectors, which frequently means that Frank, our division manager, rather than doing division manager things, is out in the field performing inspections. We're asking for 2 additional construction inspectors for the erosion control group so that we can provide the level of service we need to, timely response, and really be sure this is so critical that we can maintain our local issuing authority. And that is so key to, again, providing a great level of service to Cobb County for the long-term water quality, but also as the local issuing authority, we're able to turn around plans that need to be reviewed much quicker than if we had to send them to the state for review. So that's critical. We have to keep that. Code enforcement, and I know that you all hear lots of calls about code enforcement, and I tell you, last year, people were at home. They had a lot more time at home, a lot more time to call and complain about their neighbors. So code enforcement was very busy. As you know, in code enforcement, we are reactive. We're not proactive, and it's really the worst first. Let's deal with the hot cases first, and then the initial inspections. And when we submitted this presentation, we were at 1,600 pending re-inspections. That was coming off the tail end of grass and weed season. Summertime is always the busiest time for our code enforcement officers. I asked Kathy where we stood today. We're down to 1,470 pending re-inspections. And then, of course, the court caseload demands additional inspections. And I was speaking with Kathy just today. She actually had just spoken with her counterpart in Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County, of course, being the most comparable to Cobb in terms of size. We have 14, when we're fully staffed, we have 14 code enforcement officers. 2 of those 14 are senior officers that are quasi-supervisory, just a little higher level. And then, of course, we have our division manager, Kathy. Gwinnett County has 20 code enforcement officers, plus 4 supervisors, and a manager. So as you can see, our 14 officers when we're fully staffed is well below really where we should be. And here you can see some of the statistics for code enforcement. 2017, there were only 1,540 proactive cases. At that point, the board authorized some funding for some additional code enforcement officers. That helped out. But as you can see, we're back down to, we simply do not have the resources to meet the demand of the calls that are coming, the complaints are coming, and still to be able to do anything proactive at all. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you've got it all on your presentation in front of you. So to support that need, we're requesting funding for 4 additional code enforcement officers. We feel like this is what it's going to take to really be able to meet the needs that we have currently and to hopefully be a little bit more proactive in some of our code enforcement efforts. We don't intend to go out there and write a citation to everybody who has chipped up paint, but certainly, things that are pressing issues, we want to be sure that we get those addressed. So in summary, total personnel, as you can see here, we are requesting all of our personnel in fiscal year 23, so that's 1.4 million increase over the 22 adopted budget, about a 13.2% change for personnel. And here, I won't go through this, but this just shows the overall breakdown so that you can see I've already covered all these, but it's just got everything on one page. And then the operating request. The operating request, the additional that we're asking is all to support those additional personnel. That's really what it is. Whenever you have additional personnel, you have additional need for computers. You have additional need for cell phones. Most of our personnel requests, 12 of them require a vehicle. Well, you need more vehicles, you need more gas. So as you can see here, and I'll just hit some of the highlights of the changes in our operating budget, but accountable equipment, so be able to bring on the computer equipment necessary, the plan review tables, the laptops, all of those things that are necessary to support our additional personnel. Cell phones. Field staff need to have phones, so that's something additional that we would be asking for. Capital request. Again, in community development, our commodity is our people and the services that we provide. We don't have nice senior centers. We don't have dogs. We don't do any of those things. we do have it's tough to compete with the dogs, but we do have some capital needs. And as you see here, we're requesting $489,000 in 2023. All of it is to support the personnel. Most of it is in vehicles. It would be one for the administration group. Or I'm sorry, the $100,000 here for the administration group. There is going to be some construction that's needed to really build out our space. We also have some additional space that we're hopeful we may have some opportunity for down the road. So we've budgeted $100,000 for building renovations to be able to find a seat for all of these folks. An additional vehicle for business license in 23, also in 24. They had a compliance official vehicle that was lost to surplus, so we need to replace that. Additional vehicles for our 4 code enforcement officers, 5 new trucks for development inspections, 1 for erosion control, and then also a vehicle for the zoning division. Right now, there is no vehicle for the planning or zoning division, so this would be a shared vehicle with all of those groups. So again, all tied directly to the staff request. So here you can see our total budget summary. 23 is when you're going to see the biggest change. It's an 18.4% increase over 22, but then that'll drop off in 24. So whenever you look at on average, it's about $1.5 million annual once we have all of our people and our capital needs in place. So now I've told you all the things we need. I'll tell you a little bit about what we bring in, because I think that's important. One of the things that's great about community development is that we really support ourselves. So that's very fortunate for us. I mentioned the change in the building valuation tables that we adopted this year, moving to the 18 tables versus the 2010 tables. Even still, you can see here that for a 2,500 square foot home with an attached garage, construction value $242,000 in Cobb. I don't know where you find that, but if we had one, the permit fees in Cobb would be $1,200. Cherokee would be $2,715. Gwinnett, $2,575. DeKalb, $2,000. So you can see we're still well below where our neighboring jurisdictions are. Permit fees really should be directly tied to the services that you're providing. You should bring in the fees that you need to provide the service. And here you can see the blue bars, that's the commercial permit fee revenue starting in 2013 all the way through 21. And then that sort of burnt orange color is residential. And the line that you see there passing through those bars, that shows the adopted budget for the development inspections group. So you can see here, we have a surplus of funding that has been collected in permit fees, but our budget has not increased. And you'll see another slide here in a moment that shows you we're bringing in more revenue, the budget hasn't been increased. We did some just very conservative estimates about additional fee revenue that we expect in the next couple of years. Just 3% change in revenue, which I think is very, very conservative, to show here that in 23, with the additional capital needs, to be able to get to the funding level that we've requested. We'd have a little bit of an offset. It would balance out in 24, and ultimately, whenever you look at 21 and 22, the surplus of what we bring in versus what we spend for the development of an inspections group, it's a wash. I mean, we're still over and above what we are requesting to spend. Business license, another great example of the revenue that's coming in, and the ways that community development supports the county. You can see here the first three charts up at the top, those are all specifically occupation tax revenue, so just business licenses, not taking into account your alcohol excess tax, your hotel motel tax, tourism fee, any of those things. So in 2019, it was 20.2 million. We had a very slight drop off in 2020 to 19.9 million. So you can see there, it was about a $250,000 drop from 19 to 20. And in fiscal year 21, we finished at $21.4 million only occupation tax revenue. I mentioned the compliance officials earlier. These numbers down here are just really interesting. Again, we have 4 compliance officials. Those guys get out there, they find businesses that are operating without their occupation tax, people who are behind on their occupation tax payments, and just helping them to come into compliance. This was completed, we put this together about 3 weeks ago and sent it to finance. At that point, we were a little over $900,000 in what we had collected, just our compliance officials. At this point, our compliance officials have gone out there and collected $1 million, 4 officials, $1 million in revenue fees that we would not have collected otherwise. Again, fees that are due to the county, businesses operating in the county, pursuing those. So we're confident that adding the additional compliance official supervisor, as well as the additional compliance official, so that we can really focus on also bringing our alcoholic beverage establishments in line, that it's something, again, that will pay for itself. And then finally, our last slide of numbers here, I just wanted to show you all, I thought it would be helpful to see the total revenue that comes in through community development versus our budget. So fiscal year 2017, you see we were at 33.4, about $33.5 million in revenue, fiscal year 17. Total budget, 10.7. We fast forward to 2020. 2020, a pandemic year, we were still at 34.5 million. Our budget was only about 200,000 higher than it was in 17. Here we are, 2021. Revenues have picked up again. Business license, development, we're booming. There's work happening. There's good things happening, but we have not been afforded the resources to really support that additional demand and that additional need. So again, very conservative projections, very conservative. I think whenever you look at the change over time, that to project 2% per year, fiscal year 22, 23, and 24 is very conservative. Even with what we're requesting today, you see in fiscal year 17, our total budget was about 32% of our revenue. Fiscal year 24, it would be 34% of our revenue, projected revenue. That's my spiel. I really appreciate the opportunity and that all of you have afforded us to come and be open and honest and transparent with the challenges that we have. Frankly, I feel like our story for community development is all good news. It's all good news. There is business happening. People are moving to Cobb because it's a great place to live. It's a great place to work. So I just am glad to present this request to you, answer any questions that you have. I want to thank all of you and the county manager, as well as the finance team, and of course my team, for giving us this opportunity to share this information with you. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. That was an informative, very dense presentation. I'm surprised that you were able to get the agency down in 35 minutes, so kudos to you. But I think even just the tightness of it doesn't necessarily reflect the vastness of the work that all of you do. And I appreciate you putting in perspective how much is generated through your agency versus how much is retained to do the work that you do. Do commissioners have any questions for Jessica this afternoon? Commissioner Burrow?
Not really any questions. That was a very thorough presentation. Thank you. But I just want to say thank you to you and your whole team. I'm sure they will all tell you we complain a lot or send them a lot of work every day. And I'm trying to figure out who I call the most. John Peterson, Kathy Pickett, Alicia. I mean, building Kevin Gobble. I'm on the phone constantly or emailing constantly. I've probably sent 5 emails just today for code enforcement, business license, inspections, or whatever. So kudos and thank you to you and your team for all your dedication and hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
And please take my phone calls.
Commissioner Richardson?
I mean, pretty much ditto on that. The only thing I was going to say was not only was it informative, it was extremely compelling. It is quite the case. I love how it was articulated, frankly. And thank you for all that you're doing. And we're going to do our part.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, if there was any observation, it was, I think you probably put a lot of time in determining what your requests were. I know they could have been even greater with some of the requests that we've had. And I know code enforcement is typically a significant issue across the county. And again, I know having 4 additional would be of help, but I'm hoping that gets us to where you think we need to be. And also with the housing position, I know there was that one time we had a part-time role, and it kind of comes and goes as far as the volume of email, but there seems to be a lot of opportunity with that as we have housing that ages in the multifamily sector. So, you know, when I saw the part-time request, even it would not have caused an offense if it was a full-time person doing that. And I even think of what we're trying to do with housing now. You know, even if somebody could just dedicate themselves to housing from just reshaping what that looks like for Cobb as we continue to grow, as you know, we continue in our affluence, but also in our disparity. Certainly, I would be supportive of seeing that number higher. With that, are there any additional questions? Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. I'm glad if anyone has any questions or wants to meet and talk about it in more detail, I'm certainly glad to do so.
Right.
Thank you all.
It's my understanding, Commissioners, that Superior Court is also here to provide a budget presentation. Does anybody need a break before they come up and get started? No, are we good? All right, we'll just roll through. We have our Chief Judge with us, Judge Leonard.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Is it okay with you all if I remove my mask?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you for letting me be here. One of the first things that I did when I became chief was to set up some strategic planning sessions, something that we've never engaged in as a court. So this has dovetailed nicely with some of that planning that we have undertaken in fashioning a long-term vision for the court. So thank you all for the opportunity to come do this. Also, I want to thank my court administrator, Christopher Hansard. I want to thank Bill Volkman, Buddy, Susan, Maria, also Sharon Stanley, Kimberly Limley, and Doug Hendricks for helping us get this information ready to present to you all. I do need to give one caveat before I jump into things. Judges are bound by the Code of Judicial Conduct and have some restraints on what we can comment on publicly when it comes to cases or categories of cases, or even sometimes public comment on public policy issues or things that may become politicized. So if you ask a question and I say I'll come see you about that later, that's probably what that's about. It's something that might get close to one of those rules that I have to abide by. So just bear with me on that. I won't duck any of your questions, but there are some that could have to get answered privately, okay? So that's one caveat. Let me begin by telling you what we do in Superior Court. We handle the most serious cases that come through the court system. We handle the things that are impacting greatly businesses, people's lives, money, freedom, children. Those are the things that we deal with. We have exclusive jurisdiction over any felony crime that's committed in Cobb County. We have concurrent jurisdiction with state court across the street over misdemeanor crimes that happen in this county. We have unlimited civil jurisdiction, exclusive domestic relations jurisdiction. So that's all the divorces, child custodies, legitimations, all of that has to come to Superior Court. All your equity, restraining orders, somebody gets beat up, they need to be protected, they come to Superior Court. It's urgent stuff, it's serious stuff. Elections come to Superior Court. Today, as we think about the World Series coming to town, anybody happy that there's a stadium and the World Series coming? Bond validations come to Superior Court. So those are some of the things that we do. That is certainly not all of it. We handle pretty much everything from A to Z in the code. We're a court of general jurisdiction. Do you have a little clicker? Can I use that? Thanks. Okay, mission statement. Superior Court of Cobb County provides justice for all by administering the duties of the court fairly, impartially, and efficiently while protecting the rights of everyone. I'm going to talk to you today about some of that, and especially the efficiency piece, and how we can improve some of that. But I also want to take a few minutes before I get into all that to tell you a little bit about more of what Superior Court is, because I think there's a tendency to view Superior Court as 10 judges sitting in a courtroom deciding cases, but it's much, much bigger than that. So I want to get into that a little bit. Spend a minute for our accountability courts. I've seen some of you all at some of our graduations. There are 3 on this slide. There's one more that we couldn't fit on the slide that I'll tell you about in a minute. But you see drug court. This is Superior Court programming, okay? And I like to call this the original criminal justice reform. All right, we've been doing this for a while and been doing it well. Drug court has kept 666 graduates out of prison, parole, or on probation to a tune of $1.6 million savings to taxpayers. Mental health court, same kind of thing, 68 graduates, another $722,000. These are courts that are changing people's lives. When you go to these graduations, you leave and you feel good and you feel like you're helping families, you're helping the members of this community. Veterans Court, everybody loves the Veterans Court. It has become a model court just like the mental health court. So when I say a model court around the state, they're getting ready to start a court somewhere, you want to go see how to do it right, go to Cobb County. That's what the state will tell you when they've selected us as a model court. 54 graduates from the Veterans Court. And one that's not on there, oh, by the way, these are mostly pre-adjudication cases. So what that means is these folks get out of the criminal justice system when they graduate, without having a conviction on their record and all the barriers that come along with that, life barriers, job barriers, all of that kind of stuff. So this is making a real difference. In addition to the ones that are on your slide, there is the Parental Accountability Court. That is the mission there is to transform chronic non-payers of child support into financially responsible parents by removing barriers to employment. And they provide counseling, literacy programs, job skills, life skills. Since 2017, when that court was started, it served 194 different children. It has recorded a 120% increase in the collections of child support from the 12 months preceding the entry into that program to the 12 months after they graduate from that program. And during the program, it's collected $472,000 in child support. Those are pretty significant numbers. Judge Harris would like you to know she's having a graduation on November the 3rd at 3:30 in courtroom 6200 if you want to come see what that is all about. So those are our accountability courts. Jury administration. We welcome over 5,000 jurors into the courthouse every year. We do it with about a third of the staff of some of our contemporaries as you see. We have gone since before COVID, bringing jurors in about 24 weeks a year to now about 45 weeks a year, trying to work through that backlog as hard as we can in a way that's safe for everybody. And So really, we're only taking the weeks off, not bringing in jurors those weeks that are shortened by holidays primarily. Moving on, we have a drug lab in Superior Court. It serves the entire judicial campus. It also serves you all if you had any need to send any staff member over or anything like that to the drug lab. You all certainly could do that. But this aids in quick decision making. Someone shows up in court not acting right. You got allegations in a domestic case. He's using drugs, she's using drugs. You can send them down to the drug lab. You can get a quick result. That's very important in custody cases when you're trying to make decisions on where you're going to send a kid to lay their head down at night. So those kind of decisions are just crucial. It also helps us in deciding, bond condition compliance, probation compliance. So that's a resource that we have. ADR. It's hard to think about COVID and the backlog without thinking about alternative dispute resolution. We have a robust ADR office, and they're doing good work. They run mediation, arbitration, the family law workshop, the co-parenting seminar, early and late case evaluations, judicially hosted settlement conference. All of those things are provided by our ADR office. It is funded primarily with fees on civil cases. I'm in talks right now with Judge Bowers and Judge Walk about opening that to their courts as well. We've got some opportunities that I might talk about a little bit later about how to improve ADR, some expanded mediation type services for people that can't afford it. We need all the help that we can get in Superior Court and trying to find creative ways to move these cases, and so ADR is a big piece of that. Court and presiding services, this is sort of an umbrella category that captures a lot of different mission critical work for the court. We're required by law to provide interpreters to people that don't have English as their first language. Don't provide that, we'll get sued by the DOJ, period. So we provide that. We've got the Child Support Receiver's Office. This encompasses the court reporter floater pool. They give coverage to assigned court reporters that need out-of-court time because we're running court all the time. They need some time out of court to be able to produce transcripts. And so they give coverage to that as well as to the senior judges and to the judges that do not have an assigned court reporter. Our senior judges fall into this category. You've all seen them, met them. They do really important work for our court. They make us more efficient. If somebody comes in right now and files an application for a TPO, they're going to get heard this afternoon by a senior judge. They'll be walking in there with a black eye and having just come from whatever dispute has happened. It's serious stuff. We couldn't do it without our senior judges, and we're blessed to have them. But they fall into this category. One example about interpreters in this category, we had somebody that got admitted to the mental health court yesterday, Spanish speaker. Okay, that's going to end up meaning that we're going to need at least 2 hours every week of interpreter services, to come in when all of those sessions are going on in the mental health court. We can't just not take somebody into the mental health court because it would be a burden, right? If it's the right thing to do to take them, we have to provide those interpreter services. So, next up, Law Library. It's run by the Law Library Board. It's got its own fund that comes in also from filings. The entire judicial campus is served by this as well as the public. So anytime the public needs to come do legal research, they come to the Law Library. They've got Lexis, Westlaw, the full suite of books all available for them. Additionally, the Law Library pays for the Westlaw and the book subscriptions that all the judges subscribe to as well. That's what our court looks like. We've got 10 judges right now. You see the one in red is coming in January. Judge Henry Thompson has been selected and appointed to serve. That begins January the 1st. So we're excited to have our 11th judge finally come join us. We expect to get the certificate of occupancy on the 11th courtroom this week. It is complete, I'm told. So thank you all for your help in getting those renovations done. I'll tell you this, Superior Court, I believe, provides a value. Much of the judicial salaries and much of the administrative assistant salaries are provided for the state. They flow through, for those admins, flow through the county, but a lot of that is state funded. Superior Court Administration. That's him and his assistant. And they supervise, this is going to take the next 2 slides to get through them, but they supervise all of the people that support all the different things that I just went over with you. So under presiding services, there is 1 full-time staff attorney that supports the senior judges and 3 part-time folks that job share and do the judicial administrative assistant type roles there. In jury services, we've got 2 employees there. That's Wendy Portwood and Justin Dobson. If you follow the court's Twitter account, you've seen some jurors giving them high praise as they leave and talk about what a good experience they had coming to Cobb County to serve, even in the pandemic. Court services, lot falls under this category. You've got 11 full-time folks. This is going to be the people that schedule the bailiffs, schedule the interpreters, pay the bills, the floater, court reporters, all of those people. And by the way, bailiffs are not the traditional employees. They're a per diem employee, so they're a civilian. You might have seen them walking around. They have the badge on, but they're civilians. They get paid the same whether they work a half a day or whether they're there with jurors until midnight. Okay, those are primarily folks that have retired and come back to perform this service in another way. There are 50 per diem bailiffs, and they are part-time. Their salaries are set by the fall grand jury, and then we pass that on to you all when the general presentments come, just like the grand jury sets jury pay. Accountability courts, these are the people that support the mission of the accountability courts. It's essentially 2 people per accountability court. There's 1 director, 3 coordinators, and 4 case managers. They could not do the good work of the accountability courts without them. Moving over to the next slide, still under court administration, the next 4, you've got the law library. There's 2 full-time, 1 part-time position there. You've got 6 in ADR, 4 coordinators, 1 director and a facilitator. Over under information services, we have an agreement with IS, and we're very fortunate to have it. You all were here when we presented David Tyler with an award for his work. He was instrumental in helping us navigate COVID and become really a leader in the state in finding other ways to keep the cases moving when essentially a lot of places were shut down. And so he undertook a complete, judicial campus-wide technology renovation underway, spearheaded that project, and did it on time. And it's been fantastic. So we really are a leader in the state in finding alternate ways to run courts. And that was not easy, by the way. That's been hard. There was a time when I was logging about 3,000 minutes a month on Zoom. That is not good for your eyes, so I might have to pull out my new reading glasses in a minute to get through some of this. But that's been so helpful to have him help us with all of the information services stuff. And then last, in that last box, that's the lab, the drug lab that I already told you about. We got 4 full-time, 2 part-time there. There are people that are lab technicians. You got drug screeners. You got people that have to watch, give the sample to make sure that you've got a legitimate sample, not something coming out of a Ziploc bag and whatnot. So, all right, challenges and opportunities for improvements. Number 1, of course, is going to be the COVID backlog and trying to work through that. That's obviously the number 1 challenge that we're dealing with now. Related, and not entirely different from that, is efficient scheduling of matters. It is something I'll discuss with you a little bit more in a minute. I'm going to be asking for some new positions to help us with that. Our accountability courts and probation programs, we've got some opportunities for improvement right here. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And we've got space problems in the courthouse. We're about full. That building's only 12 years old, but we're about full. And lastly, recruiting and maintaining court staff. And I know it's a reoccurring theme. Y'all been hearing it. We're struggling to compete with not only the private sector, but our neighboring jurisdictions. It is a struggle to recruit where it wasn't always that way. A lot of people really wanted to come serve in Cobb, and it's been a little bit of a struggle to keep those people, and especially the mid-level people, because people will come in, they'll get trained, they'll get an offer to go somewhere else, and they'll go. The people that came in under the old pension system got a little more incentive to stick around longer and grow into those leadership roles, whereas the ones that are coming in, they get poached, quite frankly. And I know raises aren't really in the scope of what we're talking about here. I understand there's a study coming for that. I'm glad about that as well, but I do think that's a problem, and I hope that we can work together to find a solution for it, because we're just not competitive like we used to be. All right, general fund budget. Bottom right-hand corner, it's 26% year over year. The very next year in 23, it's a little higher, it's 43%. That is primarily because of the capital outlay. If you look on line 3, column 3, the 1.3 million right there. I'll come back, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but that's your summary. Good chunk of that is personnel. We're asking for 20 new positions in Superior Court, and we're asking to change 3 positions away from fee and grant funded onto general fund type payroll. The first line up there, this is the one my colleagues would say, just if you can't get this one done, just don't even come back. They would tell me just not come back. This is the one that my colleagues want me to ask the most for, and this one is critical. I'll start off with a caveat by saying I'm requesting this on 2 fronts. I've put it in the budget for 23 and 24. I've also sent over a letter requesting ARP funds to get it in 22. The reason being, scheduling cases has become more difficult than ever, and it has been a challenge. It's something that the judge's office have had to pull into chambers to do. The reason it's difficult is because it takes a lot more information to schedule court these days. I have to know, for example, how many witnesses, how many parties, how many attorneys, what the time announcement is, so that I can stagger those cases appropriately, make sure that my courtroom doesn't end up packed and be an unsafe place to bring people into. It's also, this change will also bring us in line with the way that most other jurisdictions of comparable size schedule cases. It's somebody that's accountable to the judge's office that can accommodate our individual and different ways of doing things. One judge might want to do 20 cases every 30 minutes on a criminal calendar call day. Another judge might want to specially set everything. And so having that person be in chambers that can do that scheduling and calendaring and then give that to the clerk to send notice will improve our efficiency. We want to be able to deliver a good service, and that is something that we have been struggling with. I will tell you, the clerk of court is on board with this proposal. She also believes it would be a good idea. So that's that. Number 2, our folks that come into court and leave with a misdemeanor conviction right now are getting supervised by a private for-profit corporation. I will tell you, I believe that is sort of an outdated model. I don't have anything bad to say about our vendor whatsoever, but I think that's an outdated model. I think there are some things that are uniquely governmental, and there shouldn't be anybody with any financial interest in our criminal justice system, period. So I'm requesting to create a Superior Court division of the Sentence Enforcement Unit. That's the probation supervision unit that exists in the State Court of Cobb County, where I used to serve prior to coming over to Superior Court. SEU is the gold standard in probation. They maintain caseload sizes that are very manageable. They will end up delivering to us a higher level of supervision, better supervision, and they'll be accountable. They'll be accountable to the courts where we can make sure that we're delivering a high level of service. I am authorized to say I've run that by the county attorney. He thinks that's a good idea too.
You said he said it was a good idea? Is that what you said, Bill?
He supports it in concept, yes. Next are drug screeners. We need some expanded hours, expanded weekend time. We need full-time watchers in the drug lab so that the lab technicians that are running the machines don't have to take a break to go watch somebody in a bathroom stall. So that's some of what's going on there with the drug screener positions. That's 2 positions. The 6 positions for, by the way, on the probation piece, that's 1 supervisor, 4 probation officers, and an administrative assistant, okay? And then back up to the first line on the judicial calendar coordinators. If that is approved under ARP, it will decrease our capital costs. I'll come back and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So if those positions get approved now under ARP, the corresponding build out and accountable items for those positions should also probably get approved under ARP, and then we'll therefore bring down that 1.3 that I highlighted on the first slide earlier. Next slide, the law library. Talked a little bit about that a little while ago. This one here, it's not a new position. This is one we want to move away from a fee-funded and make that a general fund salary position. I've talked to my court administrator about morale and the folks that are serving under grants and fees. They don't really feel like a full-time, permanent part of the team. That's funding that could go away. And so that's one thing that I think will improve morale and sustainability and retention, as well as that'll give us some flexibility in our court programming. There's all kinds of creative ways through the law library to provide programming and services, particularly in partnerships with legal aid and things like that. Accountability court coordinators, again, that's the same kind of thing. Those are grant-funded positions. We're asking to move those over to general fund payroll. That will free up grant spending, again, to be used for court programming instead of their salaries. So this is a summary of personnel. You'll see for 23, 24, if those positions are approved, that'll bring us up to 159 positions. I'll note that 53 of those, again, aren't true, employees that are over there full or part-time. Those are per diem bailiffs. 53 of those are bailiffs. Okay, just want to point that out. Moving over to operations. This will be a 22% increase year over year. It's 30% in 23 because of primarily the accountable items that are necessary to start some of those new positions. So you'll see that up there at the top. That's your IT, furniture, computer equipment, and whatnot for those new positions. Interpreting services, talked about that a little bit ago. The county's grown. We're serving more people in a more diverse population. It's increasing the strain and demand for interpreters. By law, we have to provide those. I already told you about that. Training. We feel like we're one of the leaders around the state in providing training to judges and training to staff, and we want to keep that up. That's a budget item that's just been flat for a number of years. We've never really adjusted for it, and that's what a lot of this slide is. It's adjusting these numbers to basically actual spending levels. Some of you might remember that we became the first judicial circuit to provide implicit bias training across all classes of courts to every judge in this county. That didn't come from this, but we'd like to have the flexibility to be a little bit more creative and provide those sorts of training opportunities. Let's see, what else? We got software and office supplies. The office supplies primarily, those are just costing more these days. It's an adjustment to actual spending. Software, there's a lot that comes along with virtual court. We're having to sign up and do things with little e-signatures, and there's software as a service. There's some subscriptions there. Memberships, bringing that up to actual spending. That's state bar dues, 7th District dues, Cobb bar dues, sometimes specific sections. You've got your staff attorneys and your administrative assistants as well that have memberships. There's like drug lab certifications and memberships that those people need to be in, as well as staff attorneys, court administrators association, all of that kind of stuff. So bringing that up to actual spending levels. The next slide is juror cost. We got a new judge coming on. I already told you about that. I think it's to be expected. We're not going to see our juror weeks go back down to that 24-week level. We're going to be bringing them in steadily like we are right now. And you all should know that the statutory cap that the jurors can get paid is $50 per day. The grand jury decided to increase juror pay from $25 to $35. You all approved that, but the maximum is actually $50. So who knows what the grand jury, they meet in secret. I don't know what they're talking about right now. They could come back with a general presentment that says it's 50, and that would come over to you all for approval. But that's the maximum, but that's our juror cost. Court reporting fees. The Judicial Council fee schedule provides that court reporters get paid $6 a page. We are paying $3.78 per page. We're not in compliance with the Judicial Council fee schedule, and we need to be budgeting to increase that. Senior judge services. I mean, that's our senior judges. We couldn't do it without them. They're helping us get through the backlog. They are critical to do that. This will increase the number of days that we can have them serve by a little bit. Lastly, professional services. You'll see the $65,000 there. $40,000 of that is for the implementation of a pilot program for an intermediate veterans court, be a partnership with Superior Court and State Court to help veterans charged with lower level offenses than we presently see, things in the misdemeanor world, and have them supervised over there as part of our veterans court track. That also in that professional services number are some drug lab costs associated with confirmation testing. So a test comes in the drug lab, they can request that it be sent off to another lab to do gas chromatography. It gets mailed off, and that gets billed back. So there's some costs in there associated with that. And then other things for the building, like an occasional pressure washing or something like that. Capital expenses, that's the $1.3 million. I do just want to remind you that if you approve the ARP request for the 11 judicial calendar coordinators, that number will come down by some amount. So there's that slide, and those figures were provided to us by property management. We believe if the ARP request is approved, that you can expect about $240,000 to come off that number. What will happen with that? That's second and fourth floor renovation. We need to get SEU offices built out if those positions are approved. There isn't enough space in the state court to house them over there, so it'd be a Superior Court division that would come over. We would have to find some space for them on the second or fourth floor. There's some old grand jury space that would be renovated once the grand jury comes over to the fourth floor here, and that space would be converted to accountability court space. So that's the capital ask. So that's the general fund budget. Again, it's 26% year over year. It's 43 in the first year, primarily because of the capital. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you want to save them for later and ask me to come over, you know I will come.
Thank you, Chief Judge. we often have agenda items associated with the court, but we don't always have time to spend with you to hear about all that goes on with the campus. So I appreciate the presentation today, not just for the ask, but in providing us a helpful overview of the scope of work you and your peers provide. Do commissioners have any questions for Chief Judge Leonard, Commissioner Richardson?
So would you say that earlier when you mentioned the grants, thank you for the presentation, by the
Yes,
way, but
yes.
for the grant-funded positions, you said that that those monies can be repurposed for other things, so they're not specific to those roles. Are there other restrictions associated with those grants, or are these just?
So each grant, the way that it's written, will have certain restrictions in it. There are very rarely restrictions against using it for the programming that comes along with those courts. So whatever we do with it, I mean, we're not just going to go say, hey, we're going to go do a chili cook-off or something. That's not what it's going to be at all. It's going to be programming related to the services that those grants are there to support. And if we can shift them away from salaries, it'll just give us the ability to be nimble and flexible with things to support that mission.
Okay, thank you. And the only other comment I was going to make with the bringing the probation in-house, I'm sure that's some risk mitigation on our side and kind of gives us a little bit of a stick and a carrot opportunity.
It is. Number one, I do think it will provide a higher level of service.
Right.
And I mean it when I tell you the Sentence Enforcement Unit is the gold standard. They do a great job. Donna Shappett does a great job supervising them in the state court. And, I asked her originally, is this something you can absorb? Can you absorb our misdemeanors into that? And they looked at our numbers, and it's not workable for them to be able to maintain their caseload standards and then bring on that volume of cases. She's happy to help supervise it. It is, I think, correctly categorized as some risk mitigation. But I think it's the right thing to do, and I think it'll give our citizens a better level of service, and it'll definitely, I think, make the court run smoother. You'll have probation officers that will be in-house. So if somebody needs to come in and testify in a probation revocation hearing, they can leave their desk, they can hop up the elevator and come in and testify instead of continuing a case down the road. So.
Right, and basically if something goes wrong with the service, we can actually do something about it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Any other commissioners? I do have a question.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do have a question for you, Judge. Is there any offset from the state for any of these costs? I know that at least with, judicial salaries there is, but with
Right.
the actual administrative or even capital costs associated with that, does that always fall within the local government?
Yeah. The state kicks in money for judges' salaries and the administrative assistant salaries. They provide one staff attorney per circuit. So
Okay.
that's about what the state picks up.
Okay.
The rest of it falls on the
I
county.
know. Very good. Okay, any other questions? Thank you for your time and also
Thank you
helping
all.
to thank you for prioritizing, which
Absolutely.
is most
You're
important.
welcome.
Good seeing you.
Here's your clicker back. Thank you very much.
Commissioners have no more questions, then our work session concludes at 2:45. We'll see everyone back here tonight for our evening meeting at 7:00 p.m. Our meeting is officially adjourned.